Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 2. You made it. We're so excited you're here. I have my other HyperDoc girls are representing from other parts around the country. Girls, go for it.
Hey guys, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, going to talk HyperDocs to all those Cleveland teachers. Oh, Kelly's fixing her sound. There she goes.
Oopsie, sorry everyone. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, so I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm at a Google Summit here, and we are gonna take 2 days and talk HyperDocs. So guys, watch the EdTech team hashtag. Lots of teachers are gonna be talking HyperDocs in the next 2 days here in Cleveland. Woo, representing.
Awesome. Hey everybody, this is Kelly, and I am in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's been a really fun little adventure here, and I'll be on Teachers Give Teachers tonight on the chat. I love how everyone is starting by just saying where they're from. So thanks for doing that, because it's great to start making connections on the chat.
Awesome. And I want to introduce a special guest who's with me today. This is Jordan. Hi. Jordan is just wrapped up her first year of college, and she's actually the one who inspired us and wrote the foreword to our book. So we're so excited. She's going to be doing some babysitting and hanging out with us here today. But before we let her disappear, I thought it would be great for her to share a little bit about a story that she's got to share with us. So I'm going to let Jordan do a little bit of talking for a moment.
Yeah, of course. So I just finished my freshman year of college. So I wrote the foreword my senior year of high school. And that senior year, I kind of wrote it inspired by one of my teachers. And he was just a very traditional guy, and he taught, and he was kind of stuck in his ways, and I wasn't really getting the best out of his class. That being said, he was a great teacher, and he had a lot of respect for his students and everybody who was there. But about a month after the book came out, he came up to me and said, so I was reading this book, and I read the foreword, and I saw your name. And I just wanted to let you know that you were heard, and that it's just a really interesting perspective, which made me have a lot of respect for him, like on top of whatever respect for him I had in the first place. Having finished my first year of college, I don't know, I feel like the one thing that I wish a lot of my teachers had gone over before that point was that I'm going to be on my own a lot, and my professors don't hold my hand, and I have had my hand held my entire educational career up until this point. I know that there's supposed to be like a big leap from high school to college in the fact that you are more independent, but I feel like that gap doesn't have to be as large, and I feel like giving students a little bit more free rein in the classroom to explore topics that they chose, instead of, I don't know, giving them something with no creativity involved. I mean, I wrote one of my papers freshman year about thrift shopping culture, because that's something that I'm interested in, rather than something that I was forced to explore. I chose to explore it on my own, and in the process, I was learning persuasive writing and exploring a topic in depth. So I think that exploring passions, as well as exploring, technology, and exploring just different ways that you could teach the same thing while including things that students actually enjoy, is really important.
Nice job, Jordan. You guys, I just have to say too that this is my niece, Jordan, and I'm just so proud of you. She is quite a thinker. I love the story you just shared. Thank you guys. Her foreword is really moving, and we wanted to start the book with her foreword, like we said, Kelly said last week, because that's what this is all about. Everything you do with HyperDocs is for people like Jordan that are sitting in your classrooms. So thank you.
She's such a great reminder to be mindful of choice, and that there's just real people, real humans with real interests, just sitting in those desks. So I love, love, love that she kind of keeps us grounded in why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. Okay, let's get started, you guys. We've got tons to cover. I just want to quickly remind you how to access our slides for today. So you, let me go ahead and do a screen share. You will be accessing today's slides from our online scope and sequence doc. And you'll just go down to where it says week 2, chapter 2, presentation slides, and you will have access to the entire slide deck. And I'll just be working through that throughout the course of our time together today. And then you'll have links, and then the girls can throw some links into our chat as well. So no worries there. Again, it was so nice to have Jordan's voice today. And, you know, it's funny because I went ahead and Googled her, and we talked so much about, you know, having a digital presence and an actual digital footprint. And I think one thing that this reminds me of is that you want to be somebody. I love when I Googled Jordan's name, her fashion blog came up, and there was a whole article written about her and the work that she's done. And I just think it's a great reminder to encourage our students to have a positive digital footprint and to find ways to put their own personal voice out into the world. So again, thank you, Jordan, for that reminder. This week we have an opportunity to showcase and kind of spotlight some of the tech sets that you guys have been working on. Holy schmoly, I love seeing the work come in. I'm constantly impressed with the creativity that you guys put forward. So we want to show, we just literally went through and picked a couple of examples, one from each of our groups. So Katie Marr created a tech set on Iowa history. And I love this tech set because what she's really done, and I want to kind of scroll through this so you guys can see it a little bit, but what she does is she just really talks to the kids. She uses her voice, and I want to show you more specifically what I mean by that. She'll say things like, how awesome is it that Iowa, of all places, had the very first successful school desegregation? So she's saying the facts about Iowa, but really personalizing it. And when I say personalized, she went so far as to include personal photos of her children in her tech set. And she says, I can't wait to read and hear about all of your aha moments and connections. This unit should be very personal to you, and our learning should be deep. I just love how she's really putting that out there to her class. Here are a couple of my favorite Iowa pictures taken right in my own backyard. So here's Katie's son, Elliot, checking out the crops. I love that. And then she's got a picture of her 2 kids as they wave to their dad. And so she ends her tech set with, please note any final thoughts or responses here. Do you have any pictures that relate to Iowa life you would like to share with the class? So I think what I was really drawn to with this tech set is that she's really reminding us that learning is so personal, and when you put yourself out there, it's going to encourage the students to do the same. So they might be able to post photos of their own quote unquote Iowa life, you know? And so it's really taking this content of history in Iowa and making it personal to the students sitting in her classroom. So Katie, thank you for, you know, the way that you speak to your students and really bringing that personal element. I think that's an incredible way to connect with your students. Another tech set was this robots game board was created by Heather Roberti. She's in one of Kelly's groups. And what a fun way to be introduced to this idea of robots. I don't know a lot of the backstory, but I'm assuming this is going to be something that, you know, you launch a unit on. You know, as I started to click into some of these links, I really felt like this was an incredible mashup of some of my favorite web tools. You've got some of my favorite resources on here between TED-Ed and Discover and Prezi and Formative and all kinds of great things. But what I love is that like I clicked into this formative assessment, and it kind of has you start thinking about robots, but actually like designing one. And so I think you really take the verbs that you've placed on your tech set, like design, and are making it really meaningful and purposeful and experiential for students. So I'm just, you know, really, I think, and I think the students are going to just eat this up. I also just want to comment on the word choice that you use. I mean, I love how you have words like investigate, be amazed. Sometimes it's as simple as be amazed. That helps us to draw our students in. So awesome tech set, great design, great word choice. Absolutely love it. I can just imagine the students really eating that up. The last tech set we're hoping to spotlight today is by Jillian. Jillian was in one of Lisa's groups, and she created this incredible Wonder Woman tech set. She also used the game board template. And this is really amazing that she took the movie Wonder Woman, which is obviously a current trend. I think what this tech set does is just reminds us of how we can take pop culture and build off of pop culture to connect to the content that we're teaching in our classrooms. So she took this movie and developed a World War I kind of like basics, who, what, where, when, and why. I love that you're focusing on the basics of World War I, but connecting it to a culturally relevant, pop culture type movie. I was kind of reading some of the comments on the side, and I love that Jillian just says, hey, like, I created this with my 14-year-old in mind, realizing that after the movie, she didn't know a lot of backstory on World War I. So thank you, Jillian, for pulling all of this really, really engaging content together to make a movie that kids go see more meaningful and purposeful and connected to history. There's so much in here, and you can tell that you worked extensively on some of these links. So I'm going to leave this for you guys to check out. And while I'm thinking about it, I want to remind you that you guys are welcome to join in the other groups, the other small groups. Like there's 6 groups, and you're only in one of them. So if you want to go check out the work in the other 5, you can do that. We have this Padlet. Thank you to those of you that have already put your work on the Padlet. This is just a nice way to kind of see all of the different tech sets that are being developed all in one place. But we encourage you to also go into each other's group docs and explore and comment. It's cute. It's fun because as I was looking at one of my collaboration groups, I noticed someone from another group was in there commenting. So good for you to go in, and there's almost 100 of you guys in here. So that's a lot of shared knowledge. So definitely check out the work of your colleagues and some of the other groups. It's kind of fun to go and explore and see what everyone else is working on. I want to really quickly recognize that, let me actually stop screen sharing for a quick second. I just want to recognize that so many of you are still finishing up with your, the end of the school year. I've gotten a bunch of emails like, I promise I'm going to get my work done. Just give me a minute. It's like, no worries at all. This is definitely a self-paced course. We've planned it out into 4 chunks to kind of align to the 4 chapters of the book, but real life is happening. And so those of you that are creating and doing all this stuff while finishing up your school year, I mean, good for you. It's impressive that you've, decided to take this on. So thank you for that. And I just want to make sure that I really acknowledge that you guys have a lot going on in your lives and all that good stuff too. So thank you. Okay, so we've had a chance to look at some of the tech sets. I want to go back to screen sharing, and I want us to this week to connect to what we did last week. So last week, Kelly really had a chance to kind of walk you through the specifics of what a multimedia tech set is. And multimedia tech sets are just an incredible way to curate content around a topic, to really get kids exploring, to engage our students with images and quizzes and videos, and just like really take learning to something that our our textbooks couldn't do. But now we want to move you into actually creating HyperDocs. And so this chart kind of shows the difference between a text set and a HyperDoc. We get all the time, isn't it just a doc with links? Well, a text set is pretty much just a doc with links. A HyperDoc, on the other hand, is where you now get to bring in all of that pedagogy and really design the lesson flow for your students. So feel free to come back to this graphic. I think it's going to be an incredible way for you to articulate maybe to colleagues that you work with around the difference between text sets and HyperDocs. And at the end of the day, it's a digital lesson. It's got, it's packaged up using Google Apps of some sort. There's elements of the 4 C's in there. So those are some of the kind of basics that make a HyperDoc a HyperDoc. So hopefully that helps. what we want to do for you today is kind of take you through some of these models of education. We'd like to put this in before you start creating, because we think that thinking about these things are really valuable before you create, so that they're present in your creation process. I know that, raise your hand on the group chat. Raise your hand if your district really has enforced the SAMR model. Actually, why don't you guys go ahead and just plop in the chat and the girls can kind of moderate for us. How many of you have been, really hit hard on the SAMR model? Or how many of you, your district, I know our district a couple years ago when Common Core was coming out was really pushing that DOK wheel, the WEB's DOK, depth of knowledge wheel. Some of you have more of an emphasis on the 4 C's, and then many of you are familiar with the ISTE standards, but I'm just curious, there's kind of these like have-tos that our districts really encourage us to do, but what we did was we went through these 4 things, and as we were creating our HyperDocs, we pushed ourselves and challenged ourselves to think about HyperDocs in light of these components. So I'm not going to really talk in depth about any of these things. I do want to look at this particular doc because it's one of my favorites. What we did was we pulled together a bunch of HyperDocs and just kind of forced ourselves to place them along the SAMR model. And so, this is kind of, SAMR model starts kind of at the bottom with substitution. And so we have some HyperDocs that sometimes are just serving a need in our classroom for substitution. Maybe you go from note-taking in a spiral notebook to digital note-taking. Well, what would that look like? There is a HyperDoc for you to kind of see what digital note-taking might look like using substitution. Reading and annotating text. You could give your students a piece of paper and they could annotate on the piece of paper, or they could do it digitally. Maybe you start augmenting. So here's some great HyperDocs to kind of ask yourself, what would augmentation look like with HyperDocs? Maybe you're learning how to use a new web tool. Maybe you're just, learning a little bit more about the topic. So then you want to not stay in substitution and augmentation, but you want to move more towards transformation. And so we've put together some HyperDocs for you to really explore in these 2 areas as well. So what does modification look like? Maybe you want to reflect and revise with students, but do it in a way where they can link up and share with a writing partner, reading partner. Maybe you want to start extending what a read aloud looks like, and so you have a lot of lessons kind of wrapped around some of the read alouds that you do in your classroom, and that might start to modify the way that you've taught read alouds in the past, because kids can now create and do things differently. And then, of course, at the end of the day, our end goal is basically giving students a chance to create and think about the things that they couldn't do before. We like to always ask ourselves, what is it we can do now that we couldn't do before? So creating HyperDocs with that question in mind. And when you're looking at the redefinition collection that we have here on our SAMR model Mentor HyperDocs doc, you're going to see things like Genius Hour. You're going to see like actually developing an entire unit. And I'm not going to click into a ton of these. I want you guys to really have this SAMR doc up and really explore a lot of this. Here's an entire narrative unit of study. And I've basically built like 2 weeks worth of lessons. And the kids are able to watch and jot their thinking, and they're able to, go in and actually draft a script, and they're able to do a lot of that kind of like unit work all on one HyperDoc. It's fun. I've got like a little fire here. You're sitting by the fire. What would a fireside chat look like? And how does that change the mood and tone? And you're able to do all of your teaching around a unit all on one HyperDoc. So these tend to be more getting our students towards redefinition. We're really doing things that we couldn't do before. So this is one of my favorite docs. I really encourage you guys to explore this. We put this together a while ago. There's probably a lot more that we would add to this. There's probably a lot that we would change. You can have some good conversation based off of this doc. So enjoy that. Depth of knowledge, honestly, when we looked at your game board text sets, so many of you use the language inherent in this WEB's DOK wheel. So, we don't ask our kids to just recall information all the time. We ask them to investigate. We ask them to explore and do things like that. The ISTE standards we created, and I'll just click into those quickly. We created a set of standards based on the ISTE standards, but kind of more with HyperDocs in mind. So if you wanted to make sure that you're reaching the standards for students, how can HyperDocs help you to do that? We're always trying to just like solve problems in education. And so pulling up the ISTE standards and kind of thinking through this checklist is a great way to check in on yourself before you start creating, or just kind of plant that in your head as you're creating. Okay, I'm going to move on to the 4 C's. We love our 4 C's, and I know a lot of people are talking now about the 6 C's. Gotta love education and its ever-changingness. But the 4 C's are just a great, quick, go-to way to make sure that your lesson planning is centered around communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So what we did was we kind of put together tools for each of those 4 C's. So here's a doc that's packed with tools to communicate. This would be something that like the teacher would use. You know, you're obviously not going to have the kids necessarily getting on Skype, but you could be using Skype to communicate in new ways as part of your HyperDoc. So this would be something the teacher could pull up and facilitate. We have tools to collaborate, curated, and like I said, these are ever-changing, so you can file make a copy of all of these docs that we've kind of curated and switch out any of these resources. So if you're working with younger students, you can go ahead and change any of these so that it's appropriate for the age that you work with. Here's some fun tools that Lisa's put together for critical thinking. And if you look along the margin, the right margin, it says primary, elementary, and secondary. So like this first row is really fun stuff to use for primary. So you could make a copy of this doc and actually take out like the second and third row, or switch out that content if it's not age appropriate for your kids. Of course, we always encourage you to do that as well. But great, fun. I love the tools for critical thinking as extension ideas or engage ideas. I love to kind of bookend my lesson planning with some of these tools to get them thinking before you start teaching or at the end. And then our favorite, tools to create. We love our tools to create. At the end of the day, we want our students to be creators, not consumers. And so this doc, again, file make a copy of this, and you can switch out any of these tools to create. We have new favorites all the time. In fact, I'm looking at this, and it said Adobe Voice, and it's now Adobe Spark. So the tools are going to be changing all the time, but what's not going to change is how important it is to get our students to create, to have our students giving them opportunities on a HyperDoc or, you know, through the digital lesson to create and put their work out into the world. So speaking of create, I'm just going to stop screen sharing for a quick second and check in. And Kelly and Lisa, please stop me. We're usually together physically, and so I'm hoping you guys will interrupt me if I'm missing a good question I need to talk about.
So many good questions. So we are typing like mad.
Okay.
And I think you're doing good. I think we'll just keep typing away, but hopefully people are getting their questions answered. Things like being FERPA and COPA compliant, you know, using sites that are appropriate. Do we teach with HyperDocs at their own pace all the time? And just a lot of people sharing ideas. So
thank you. So much of HyperDocs it's like this blend of reality, like what's real in your classroom or in your school district, and you know, and the FERPA stuff and all that's really real, and it's changing all the time, and we are always trying to stay ahead of that. But also being cognizant of the fun factor and the you know, strong pedagogy, and are we really building students to think for themselves and create and be authentic in the work that they do and all that stuff. So such a balance that we walk as educators, and I think with so much available out in the world and the internet, I think that's why we have fallen in love with HyperDocs as well, because it allows you to kind of like package up all of that and do all that thinking while you're creating it to help alleviate some of those issues. So thank you, you guys. I'm glad you're having that side conversation. So we're at a point now where I would love to kind of talk now about the steps to creating a HyperDoc. And we developed these 5 steps with the busy teacher in mind, with the teacher in mind who kind of is grounded in good pedagogy. But it's this balance. If you follow these 5 steps, I think you'll get into a flow or into a rhythm of creating HyperDocs. I think it takes get a couple under your belt, and then once you've done that a few times, these steps kind of start to come naturally for you. And so here they are. We've whittled it down. Here are the 5 steps. Okay, I'm going to go back to screen sharing. Step 1 is to determine your objectives. And this tends to be the easiest. You know, okay, I teach 5th grade. It's going to be a 1-hour lesson. It's going to be science related, and it's going to cover this standard. Okay, so what are my objectives? Boom. The learning cycle is step 2. You know, which cycle of learning do I want to use? Step 3 is what packaging option is best. Step 4, I have to think about workflow. And step 5 is design. So I'm just going to kind of quickly run you through these steps a bit faster, or a bit more. So to me, step 1 is the easiest. These are the things that we tend to be able to answer kind of on the fly. We know our classrooms, we know our grade level, we know our standards. You know, these we can kind of get done quickly. Step 2, you have different options. We did a lot of, I just want to throw this out there too, we did a lot of research around cycles of learning when writing the book, and we really wanted to make sure that we tried to represent different methods of teaching, different cycles of how people learn. We settled on these basic cycles here listed. We have explore, explain, apply. A workshop model. A lot of our ELA teachers are heavily steeped in the workshop model. 5 E's model, which tends to be more science related. We developed a hybrid. We call it the HyperDoc model, but it's really a hybrid of some of these. And then we also have the hero's journey, which is a take off of or a spin off of the 5 E's model. So deciding you know, which cycle of learning is best is going to be a decision you have to make as you create your HyperDoc. Next is thinking about your packaging. So what Google app is going to be best to package up this lesson? So is it docs, slides, maps, sites? I know a lot of people are having fun with the new Google Sites. Step 4 is thinking about your workflow. And this is honestly one of the hardest things that for us to answer. But we've kind of whittled down the workflow to these 3 steps. 1, how am I going to push out my content? So am I going to use Google Classroom? Am I going to post a shortened URL for students to access? Am I going to email students with a doc? Am I going to, you know, there's so many ways to push out your content. And then you want to think about how am I going to collect it? Or am I going to collect it? Am I going to have them turn it in through Google Classroom? Am I going to have them submit a link to their HyperDoc in a form? Thinking about these things, and then providing feedback. Is this going to be a digital lesson where I go in and actually give feedback? Is it one where I just want them to experience the learning and I don't need to give feedback? Is there going to be peer feedback? So thinking through some of those workflow decisions. Every classroom's different. If you have 30 plus kids in an elementary classroom, but you do all 5, all the different subjects, then you might have one workflow option. If you teach secondary and you've got 180 students, you're going to have a different workflow. So some things to think about as you are creating your HyperDoc. And then lastly, step 5 is our favorite. That's where you get into the design elements. So you really want to be thinking about how can I make this content that I'm teaching like actually engaging. I want to create a memorable experience for these kids. And your packaging learning, your branding and experience for them. Like you need to think about page color. You want to think about fonts and what the font says about what you're teaching. You want to insert images or be aware of current trends so that your lesson design is kind of meeting the needs of a 21st, or should I say 2017 student. You can customize links by talking to the kids. That's what I was showing in Katie's tech set earlier. She's really customizing her links and talking to the kids and saying, here, get to know my kids and talking to them, and it links up to different things. And there's so many fun design options available that, you know, the possibilities are really endless. I am going to stop screen sharing for a quick second and just check in again on those 5 steps before we go to the next level on creating our HyperDocs here. Honestly, I think what we've done is kind of really thought through the process, and hopefully, and you're going to see me pull this up in a second, but we've created even a template to take those 5 steps and do some thinking before you create your HyperDoc. Like I said, once you do this a couple times, you'll get into a rhythm and you won't need to go through all these steps. It becomes kind of natural for you. But we did create a template, and it is part of your weekly HyperDoc for this week. So it's going to kind of help you think about your lesson planning in those 5 steps. I know if you're like me, you know, I was out of the teacher ed program for so long, and I hadn't really like written out a lesson plan in a long time. And it's kind of cool to think about those decisions that we make all the time. You know, like, do I want a simulation? Do I want to simulate, you know, this experience for my kids, or do I want them to read about it, or do I want them to have a debate about it, or do I, you know, you're just making those fun decisions. And we do it all the time. We do it all day long as teachers. But we've just created a really like a methodical process to it for you. Girls, are we doing okay? I'm going to keep going. Okay. So next, I wanted to have you guys, okay, feel weird not having somebody right next to me. Next, what we did was we thought about those 5 steps on how to create your HyperDoc. So now you want to be thinking about like how to get going. Okay, so I have an option to start from scratch. I can literally file new document, and I can create new docs or new slides or new site or new map. And that's for the teacher who has their vision kind of laid out in their mind and they're ready to go for it. Another option when you're getting going is to start from a template. We've got tons of templates that we've created. Again, we created a template for each of those cycles of learning that I was sharing with you. And if you start from a template, you would go to that template and then just file, make a copy, and actually start filling it out, replacing the parts for your content. The last way to get going is to remix from another HyperDoc. So you would take someone else's HyperDoc that you've seen, feeling really inspired, you would file, make a copy, and you know, obviously make sure you give credit to that person and kind of trace, you know, the adaptations of that original HyperDoc if you can. And we just always want to give credit where credit is due. But if you are starting from scratch, I wanted to share this example with you. You know, you start with an idea and you go to File, New Slides. This is one that Anna Kobayashi, who was in, actually she was in our, I think it was our July cohort of 2016. So one of our first online classes, and she created this beautiful HyperDoc. You guys have access to it in the slide deck. And this is kind of a screenshot of her slides, but she had a vision. She had a vision. She has a beautiful sense of design. She created this Genius Hour HyperDoc with you know, a really nicely laid out plan. Oops, sorry, I wanted to click on that for you. But this is an example of someone who, you know, a teacher who knew exactly what she wanted to do. She felt confident kind of using Google Slides and was able to just create from scratch. Okay. Here is example of like creating from a template. So let's say I have my tech set for the week. Let me show you these documents kind of a little bit zoomed in a bit. So here's a multimedia tech set around personal narrative. So I've got all of my multimedia text here on the left. So I started with a tech set. This is exactly what you guys have done this week. You have created a tech set. So great, I have my tech set. Now what? Okay, I want to create a lesson, but I want to use this template. So I have my template. Here's the Explore, Explain, Apply template. It looks like this. It's really like you just click in, you switch out all these things. So here's a simple template to get started with. And what we did was we took that template and we turned it into this HyperDoc. So I should have put these, you can kind of see side by side. It started like this, and then it ends up looking like this. So the Explorer is still there, explore this text set. I switched out the words, so it said your task. I went in and instead of your task, I put think and notice. Here's my explain. Okay, I want to teach you something. I want to explain something to you. And then I switched out the words learn and jot, and then I have them actually jotting on here. Then there's the apply. So you can see how I really just started with a template. File, make a copy of this template, switched it out for all of the content that I had in mind, and voila, a HyperDoc. So hopefully you can see that transition. I want to show you that one more time. I went from a multimedia text set. I took a template. I made a copy of this Explore, Explain, Apply template, and I turned it into this HyperDoc. Okay, so hopefully that's like a nice visual for you. So that's one way to create a HyperDoc from the template. Okay, another way to get going, like I mentioned before, is to remix someone else's HyperDoc. So when you remix another HyperDoc, it's basically when you're inspired by somebody's work, or it's really similar to what you would want to do and how you would want to teach it, but you need to make some tweaks to it to meet the needs of like your own classroom. So for example, here is a creativity HyperDoc that I created, and it's a very simple, this one is packaged up on slides. But it's explore. You can see the explore portion. Instead of explain, I wrote the word discuss. And then there's an application. Instead of the word apply, I used the word create. Here's my sample slide, and here's my blank. Well, I have used this What is Creativity HyperDoc a couple of times, and I loved it so much because it's really kind of simple. And I realized creativity is kind of a concept, and I wanted to create a similar HyperDoc, but on the idea of leadership. So what I did was I remixed this creativity HyperDoc, and I turned it into my leadership HyperDoc. So I literally made a copy of this, and then went in and modified. I remixed all of the content so that my creativity HyperDoc turned into my leadership HyperDoc. So you can see in so many ways how it's similar. See how it's got the similar structure and format, and I just swapped out all of the content and the images and the links. So I've got my Explore here, and I've got this link up to multimedia text set. So conceptually, creativity, leadership, they're similar, but and then I was going to have the kids all work on one slide deck. So this is similar to that creativity one. But I want you to see how easy it can be to remix another HyperDoc. So, I mean, this happens all the time where you just get inspired by someone else's work. This happens to us on a regular basis. Like, we'll see what someone's done, and we're just inspired. And so you just file, make a copy, file, make a copy. We always encourage you to give credit. So this one was created by me, but I could say inspired by, you know, and give that person credit. So that's what we mean when we say remix. You're taking one HyperDoc and you're making a copy of it and remixing it based on the bulk of what's already there and switching it out. So we have people doing that all the time. I love when teachers post on Twitter. I love just the spirit of sharing and collaborating and getting feedback, and just always so impressed with the crowdsourcing that's happening. It's unbelievable. I know that fidget spinner HyperDoc circulated Twitter, and so just imagine all of the kids that have been impacted by Nicole Beardsley, who was willing to create that and put it out there. And I'm sure teachers had to file, make a copy, and kind of remix it a little bit, change some of the links, make it their own, and then put theirs out into their own classrooms. Those are the three basic ways to get going. You can start from scratch, start from a template, or remix one you've already seen. So I want to walk you through today how to take a template and work off of a template. So I'm going to demonstrate for you guys today kind of what this experience is going to feel like for you in the next couple weeks. So, and I'm going to demonstrate for you how you would start with a plan. So here is my plan, 5 steps to creating a HyperDoc. So you guys are going to have something like this in your weekly HyperDoc. First, the chapter 2 HyperDoc. So there comes a point where we kind of include those 5 steps that I was talking to you about. So I went through and I thought, you know what? And I'm just going to be honest with you. This inspiration came to me late last night. I thought, you know, we're getting a lot of talk about staff PD, and I know Lisa's got all the tech coaches in her group, and Lisa's, or Kelly's administrators in her group, and what a fun way to think about, well, coming back to school. And I know some of you are just finishing up, sorry, but I'm already thinking when we come back in August. How do we build a sense of community? How do we get teachers talking? How do we like learn about each other's personal lives and do it in a way that feels kind of different, but also really personal? So, so I also, this is something that if I were an administrator, I would invite the classified staff to get involved too. Why not? I don't think we do enough of that kind of whole school-wide community and collaboration building. And so that was kind of like my objectives. It's going to be, you know, like an hour session as a welcome back to, you know, welcome back from summer, community building, that kind of thing. So step 2, determine your cycle of learning. So I decided for this one to use our hybrid model, the HyperDoc model, because it has all the parts that I wanted. And then I just quickly jotted my thoughts for each part. So I said, okay, for the engage, I want to start by engaging everybody with those tasty videos. So this HyperDoc was inspired by some work that Lisa Heifeld's done recently in our school district with getting students to create the culinary students to create their own tasty videos. That's like a trend right now. And so I want to engage with the tasty videos. My explore is going to be, I want teachers to kind of explore their own cell phone, pull out their device and kind of scroll through and think about what ingredients make up a really good summer. So like looking through their personal memories from the summer, pull out 5 ingredients to create a quote unquote tasty video. Oh my gosh, have I not been screen sharing this whole time? Sorry, you guys. Here I am talking and I'm thinking that I'm screen sharing for you. Oh goodness. Okay, so anyway, so I've jotted down all these ideas. It's all here. And the next step is to think about my packaging. So I've decided to package this on slides. And you'll see that slides, I think a lot of people are leaning towards slides these days because of the design elements, but we still come back to docs all the time. Step 4 is determine my workflow. So in this case, I'm going to just post a short bit.ly at the welcome back staff meeting. I want everyone with the link can edit, and then they'll paste their content onto one of the docs I've linked up. So I've kind of thought through how this is going to play out, right? Step 5 is to think about my design, and that's it. So I've done the work to like think through what my lesson plan is going to be like, what my HyperDoc, how it's going to kind of all come together. So now I want to take a template and file make a copy of the template. So in this case, I've linked up our original template, but what we did was we took the slides version. So here's the docs version. So we actually have a slide template that looks like this, and it's the same parts as you'd see in the doc version. So see how you've got your engage, explore, explain, apply, share, reflect, and extend. So this is just the slides version of what it looks like here on, on docs. Hopefully that makes sense. But I know I wanted to create on slides, so that's why I'm using that template instead. Okay, so I am going to literally show you. I'm going to file, make a copy, and this is going to be, I'll call this Tasty Demo. And now I have my own copy of this template, and I've already done all of the thinking, like, because I have that right here on my plan. So I already know what I want to do for my engage. I know I want to link up a tasty video, okay? So I'm I'm going to skip my cover slide and I'll come back to that. But I want to engage them with the tasty video. So the now is where you just start putting in your content. So I'm going to, like I would go over into tasty YouTube video. And I want to kind of like talk to them a bit, talk to my teachers. And so I'm going to say, hey, everybody. I have a feeling this is going to start playing. So I've got my link. Ooh, I love their header. So I might go ahead and do a screenshot of that to put that on my engage. Whoopsies. So I'm going to pull that. This is hard with all these windows open. Sorry, you guys. So I'm going to pull this over. And I'm going to do a little talking to the teachers. I'm going to quickly add in a little text box, and I'm going to say, what did your summer taste like? Let's be inspired first. Here, you guys are going to do a much better, thorough job of this than I am. Just going quickly. And that's where I will link in the video to the YouTube channel. So they can just click in. I would probably do this whole group. I might show one or two of these. So you have to think about the context of your teaching. Am I, you know, having them do this individually? Well, this is going to be at a staff meeting. So I'm going to probably do a little bit of this whole group. So I'm going to paste in my link. I'm going to make this look pretty later. So for explore, so what do I want them exploring? Now this is a fun explore, and I'm going to kind of stop screen sharing for a quick second and just talk to you about this idea that I had. I was thinking so much about you guys creating your multimedia text sets, and I realized that I have a multimedia text set on my phone all the time. And so in this welcome back, you know, back to school kind of community building HyperDoc that I'm creating, I wanted my teachers to pull out their device and to actually thumb through and reminisce on their summer. So I want them to like access their photos and to pull up some photos from their summer and go, oh my God, I forgot I did that. That was so funny. Or to go into their videos and pull out a fun little video, or to even pull up your calendar because it's August, you're trying to remember what you did this summer. Go into your calendar and pull up, you know, what did I do on June 20th? Oh my gosh, June 20th, I was in Lake Tahoe with the Holmes family. I forgot I did that too, you know. That's like, there's, you know, a multimedia text set right here in your hands at all times. Maybe I'm going to pull up the notes. I always write down fun things and little memories and things in my notes section and whatnot. So I want, or Snapchat or my Instagram feed or whatever. So I want teachers to know that they have access to these multimedia texts all the time and to kind of rethink how we use our devices. So for the explore portion of this HyperDoc, I'm going to have them like explore their own cell phone just to kind of like think back on the summer and pull up a couple of different ingredients for their tasty video. So like, oh my gosh, my summer was so delicious. Look at what I did. I went to Tahoe. I went to the farmer's market each week. We went to the library quite a bit. I have a toddler. And, you know, and did swim lessons. So like pull up like the top 5 things. So that's what I want to put on this explore thing here. So I'm going to kind of word that in a way and make it kind of engaging. But I'm thinking, what can I do that's engaging? If I want them to pull up images, videos, and maybe like a calendar. So I can do something like this, you guys. This is, I'm sure this is not new to many of you, but I'm living on Giphy these days, Giphy.com. And so I can pull up an image of, let's say, water skiing. Let's say water skiing was one of the things I did this summer. I want to find like a little video to show water skiing. So, okay, here's a fun one. And I want, oh gosh, I forgot to screen share again. Sorry, I don't have the girls sitting next to me to nudge me to say, you forgot to screen share. Okay, so let's say I found this water skiing video and I want to copy that link. I'm going to add the URL and I'm going to go back to my slide. And just so you guys know, when you insert any animated image, a GIF, I hope I'm saying it right, the endless debate, right? You have to insert it by the URL. Just so you guys know, it's not, you can't do your typical copy and paste. So I'll insert that image. It's coming. So let's say I've got, I want to kind of showcase, right? I want to showcase images, video, and maybe one other thing. So I'm going to do, I'm just showing you some quick little design here. Image, maybe I'm going to copy this whole thing, paste it over. This is really not cute, but this is the beginning. This is how it gets started. Image, video, and then maybe, like I said, I want them to pull up their calendar. So maybe what I'm doing is basically demonstrating calendar. Oh, let me see if I can find an animated calendar on Giphy. That would be kind of fun. Let's check that out. So I'm thinking through and kind of having fun, actually. Let's see, calendar, ways to engage my adult students. Oh, no results found. That's because I spelled it wrong. Anyway, so, okay, so you kind of get a sense of how I want the explore. Now the explain, I want teachers to actually like pull out those 5 kind of like tasty ingredients from their summer and just kind of jot those down. So sometimes the explain can be really kind of your direct instruction moment. And I want to actually just give them a space to like jot down those 5 things. And I can tell them to jot it down on the actual HyperDoc, or jot down the top 5 ingredients for summer. Okay, so, and then I can even like number 1, get them going with that. Number 2, I can even say jot it down on a piece of paper if you're doing a blended learning experience. So there's so many options here. So this is looking ugly. Now I want to kind of show you how I've gone from my lesson plan. Okay, you saw me think through the lesson plan itself. And then I made a copy of this original template, right? And I'm just going in step by step and putting in my content and putting my ideas. I'm making this awesome digital lesson plan come to life. And now, dun, 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 I'm gonna pull it out of the oven like you would see on a cooking show and show you the finished results. So let's take a look at this lesson really quickly. Oh, let's see, I don't know why this is so small. Let me see if I can make this bigger for you guys. It's kind of hard to see. So here's my cover slide. You'll notice it's the same font that was on our template. So I have a cover slide. I've added a background image, a taste of summer. What's on the menu at Smith Elementary? And then it's always kind of fun to say, hey, this is a community building HyperDoc created by Sarah Landis, but inspired by tasty videos, Lisa Highfill, the 8,000 plus photos I have on my phone, and Saturday mornings at the farmer's market. So I'm just gonna walk you through this completed lesson so that you guys can kind of see how I went from my plan to a template to a completed HyperDoc. So you can kind of hopefully see that process. Here's my engage. Check out the Tasty YouTube channel. Watch 2 or 3 videos. Click here to watch. Here's my explore. Explore the multimedia text you have on your phone for images, videos, events, words from your summer, and then they can jot it down. Here's me exploring. Here's the explain. Oh yeah, let's talk about how these types of media play a role in capturing our summer and reveal who we are. How do the images you have on your phone reveal who you are? How does the video you have on your phone reveal who you are? How does your calendar reveal who you are as a person? Remember, this is ultimately a community building HyperDoc. This is welcome back to school. I want to get teachers talking, but I also want to get them thinking about multimedia text. This is a picture of my daughter chowing on some ribs not too long ago. So imagine the storytelling that's going to happen and the personal connections you can make as you start looking at the media. Imagine if our kids brought these into the classroom and pulled up their phones and talked about their summer. Okay, so for the apply, time to create your own Taste of Summer video using Adobe Spark. So, you know, here I am introducing teachers at the staff PD to kind of like get to know a new tool, choose a template from Adobe Spark, and just start applying. And this is where, as the principal, I'm walking around the room and just chit-chatting with my teachers, having them chit-chat with each other, just having fun, laughing, all that good stuff. Here's my share. So it's time to share your summer videos. You've had a good time. You've laughed, you know, lower the bar. Nothing, you know, don't stress about these. Just get it done. And then here, like I was saying, you have to think about your workflow. So my workflow here was to submit a link to your video. And in this fun example, I created like a quick little summer menu. So what's on the menu at Smith Elementary? And here they would link up their video. So office staff. So I might say, Rosemary. Oops, sorry, hold on. My cursor was in the wrong place. So I would say Rosemary, and then I would link up insert the link to my Adobe Spark video. You know, that kind of thing. So all the teachers are having a chance to kind of go in and have fun to kind of see our summer and kind of reflect on our summer and reveal who we are and go home and kind of get to know each other. And imagine if you're a new teacher and you are doing a fun welcome back activity like this. So after the share, after they've all linked up their quick little videos they made, then they're going to do a little reflection. So I think reflection, I talk about it all the time, is like my favorite part of lesson planning. I always want to have those kind of like really deep, thoughtful questions at the end of my lesson. So let's think about this activity in our own classrooms, because remember, this is like a PD example that I'm walking you through. Talk with somebody, like what part of this lesson can you imagine using with your own students? One way this HyperDoc might change the way I think about community building is, or this digital lesson makes me realize that I can, ... and you just kind of get your staff talking to each other. The extend, I wanted to finish up, but basically, like, here's some other video making tools. So we practiced using Adobe Spark, but what are some of your other favorite video making tools? And then we could just kind of have a quick little chat about that. So this is the finished HyperDoc. But as you guys can see, I started with a plan. I was inspired by all of those random things, the tasty video. I was inspired by all the photos and videos I have on my phone. I was inspired by just going to the farmer's market and thinking about the summer. And I just made a copy of this template and spent about an hour putting together this HyperDoc. So hopefully that gives you kind of a sense of what the creation process looks and feels like. That's what I was hoping to help you with today, is kind of like, what is it like to go from an idea to a HyperDoc? Girls, it's almost 5 o'clock, so I want you guys to jump in and let me know if there's anything major I need to talk about before I kind of wrap up on my end. How's it going over there? How's the chat? How's everybody doing around the country?
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is challenging. We're in different places, and so Kelly and I are on the phone trying to answer people's questions. We're trying to, yeah, we're on the, yeah. So I'm so sorry, everyone. We're really trying to get to your answers. You have really good questions. I think so far it's going great. They were, I think we were just trying to get links to work and share settings opened, and
this is what happens when I create late at night.
Yes, and so we're getting there. And then, Kelly, was there another big question you were trying to answer?
I hope I'm answering it correctly. I do want to just bring up Pam's question. Let me go back really quick. Okay. So Pam asks, so the lesson plan was the text set, the final is the HyperDoc. And so I was just kind of trying to clarify that a text set is also a lesson plan. It's just that there's no application in a text set. It's more of just exploration and learning. And that's really what I was highlighting last week. And Sarah is bringing us to the HyperDoc lesson plan, which includes that, that exploration and the application in the lesson. It has to have both parts to make it a full, complete, transformative lesson. Girls, do you want to chime in on that at all? But I hope that that's coming across. And if not, Pam, please put another question in the chat, and we'll try to address it before we end today.
It's a good question. I mean, we talk about it a lot, and it's actually a good conversation because it really gets you thinking about lesson planning and lesson delivery. And a lot of times when you create a tech set, it's for the purpose of getting kids to explore. It's for the purpose of having kids dig deep into a content, and you're moving around the room and chit-chatting and looking over the shoulder of the students and like chiming in and listening to their conversations and assessing where they're at, what they're thinking as they're exploring and they're digging into these different links. And so I feel like tech sets are an incredible way to kind of free you up from being in the front of the room. And I like to put my tech sets kind of like inside of my HyperDoc, but they do not have to be. They can be separate, standalone, like a moment in your classroom where you give them 15 minutes to explore. You give them an hour to explore. They do it the night before. It can be a total standalone. I sometimes will tuck in my tech set into my HyperDoc because I know I want them to do more with it. So, I mean, really, there's so many possibilities. Yeah. There's really no right or wrong, but really, really good questions, because those questions you're asking are getting you to think about lesson design and delivery.
So Sarah, there's two other things I'm not sure, because if we missed it, sorry, as we were doing the conveyor belts of questions, it was awesome. I love just so thinking so hard during this time. Two things though. One of them, did you speak about using copyright-free images in your HyperDocs?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up.
Wait. And then there's a second thing before you go, because I'm not going to get in. Also about giving credit to teachers when you remix, and how to put your name on your own HyperDoc. Just address those two things.
Yep, awesome. So giving credit to, when you remix a HyperDoc, we definitely encourage you to give credit. I think it's really important to do that. I mean, that's what we're teaching our students to do. When they write, it's plagiarism, right? So you want to be so mindful of that. And so to give credit, absolutely, as far as you can trace it back, please give credit. But also be sure that you put your name on your work. The flip side of giving credit to someone else is giving credit to yourself. It can take a lot of work and to create a HyperDoc, and we get personally attached to what we create. So absolutely put your name on your own work, so that doesn't accidentally happen down the line where you're like, I did that, and someone doesn't realize it. So definitely put your name out there, put yourself out there, but also we want to be mindful of teaching our students and modeling that practice of giving credit. The other thing Lisa brought up was what's the term? Creative Commons images. There are certainly websites that you can go straight to give to gather images from, so that you're already from the get-go aware of that. So a lot of times what I'll do, especially in slides, it's so easy to do that, is just jump down to the notes section down beneath, and I'll say, and I think I did that for most of mine, although I did create it late last night, but I put from Shutterstock or from, So actually just listing on there as much information as you can. That's it. It becomes a habit. It's easy to fall out of that habit, and it's harder to get into that habit, but it's a good habit to be in. It's just, again, we want to model and demonstrate for our students. Of course, there's some digital citizenship work that you can do, that you can kind of front load your students with at the beginning of the year around which websites to go to when you're searching Google Images. Teaching our kids to use the search tools to pull down where it says ready to be reused for commercial use and all that kind of stuff. So that's another kind of front load teaching you would want to do with kids. So yeah, hopefully that answers those questions. Great questions. I know it's already been an hour, and I know we have a Warriors game that we have to get ready for as California folks. But I don't want to take your time. I just want to quickly go through the last couple things for today. And then, of course, as questions come up, please email. I know I've gotten tons of great questions through email and also on our collaborative docs. But let me quickly go back to screen sharing, if that's okay. And we're just going to do a couple other like wrap-up things before we say goodbye for our hour together. We've linked up for you a curated list of tips and tricks. These were put together by a bunch of our HyperDoc friends and colleagues who have been doing this work for a really long time. And there's just some really fun and yet practical tips in here. So, you know, things like, I'm just scrolling through, find other HyperDoc creating educators and, you know, collaborate with them, use Google Classroom, get familiar. Oh, you can use the teacher. We have some Hangouts on air. You can look into, what are some fun ones up here? Oh, HyperDocs are textbooks your students are finally encouraged to write in. They're textbooks that your students help to create. So just some fun tips and tricks that we've linked up for you guys. Again, as you sit down in the next week or two to start creating your own HyperDoc, these are some fun kind of tabs to have open and just kind of go check out when you're ready if you need a little minute of inspiration or just want to see what other people have done kind of before you. So tons of great little nuggets in there for you to check out. The last thing, we just want to think about the process of creating HyperDocs. And I just want you to be aware that it's a process and we fall into different points in that process all the time. So sometimes you might feel like you're brand new and you're crawling along and you're like learning a new web tool, or you're going to try Google Sites and you don't know what to do, or things like that. Other times you're like, you know what, I feel good about this. I'm going to put this out on Teachers Give Teachers. I'm going to share this on Twitter. I'm going to let other people have access to this work. And you're kind of reaching new levels of transformation because you're becoming an educator who is modeling for students the work of putting your work out into the world. So just know that we come and go with all these different steps, and you know, it's totally fine to feel new. We all go through that. This week's assignments. So you will hopefully read chapter 2. We kind of went over some of those things, but it's always good to have the book next to you. When you click into the actual homework assignment, it's going to force you to make a copy of it, but it looks like this: how to create a HyperDoc. And it's going to walk you through, this is actually this is our hero's journey template that we used. So you've got the different phases here, but phase 2 is entering the unknown. And this is where you do that thinking through those 5 steps that I demonstrated for you, showed you today with my HyperDoc. So go ahead and like actually take notes on here. Do the thinking first. That will really help you when it comes time to design your own HyperDoc. Phase 3 is studying those sample HyperDocs that we talked about. Phase 4 is looking at those tools to meet the needs of the 4 C's. And then I really want to bring your attention to this last part of this week's assignment, because we have kind of like a hidden assignment in there. So we're asking you guys, we're inviting you to kind of show your own definition of HyperDocs at this point in time. So we're going into week 2. You've had a chance to look at a ton of examples. We've talked a lot about pedagogy and lesson design and lesson delivery and all these good things. So we would like you to create an artifact of any kind to showcase your own definition of HyperDocs. So you can pull up our Show What You Know bingo. You can find ideas from our Pinterest boards. You can use any tool that you want, but some sort of fun way to kind of define HyperDocs. And we have some really cool ones that we've put linked up onto our scope and sequence doc, our master doc for the class, if you needed to see some examples to kind of get you going. But honestly, just be creative. I think one of our favorites was we had someone who took the analogy of shopping for like a wedding dress, and they totally just created a slide and they went through all these fun steps and like just a fun analogy. HyperDocs are like shopping for a wedding dress, and here's why, and da-da-da-da-da. So have fun with this final little definition assignment. We think we see some of our best creativity out there when you guys work on those. You are invited to start your HyperDoc. I know many of you are just getting into summer mode. but we, just say, if you want to get started on it, go for it. Link up your draft on your collab docs, and people can start commenting on there for you, and all that good stuff. So I am wondering if we have any questions. I know some of us are, Lisa's in Cleveland right now, where those.
Yeah, I'm getting in big trouble. I can't even tell people that I'm a Warriors fan here. It is on the hush hush. So we have to be aware that there are people from around the country, Sarah. Anyway.
There is no shame in the Warriors game.
Oh, my good manners. I do want to share something, though. For my group, I've been hearing people want just different ways they can communicate, and whether, we're being Flipgrid is not for you to have these discussions. I want you to just try it out. And I know I haven't been able to get on in the video because I'm always like worried about my hair, but I'm not going to worry about my hair anymore because I'm on today and it looks terrible. So I hope you will try that and see if that works for you, to have these longer discussions that are easier to understand each other instead of typing. But I also started a Google Plus group where we can share even more. Now, this is, if you don't want to go in there, you don't have to, but I did throw it in the chat. Take the second link. I think that'll work. I'm going between different accounts right now, and so I had to do the moderator link. So the second link should let you get in and be able to join that community and join the conversation only if you want. Might be a nice way to get all of our groups, our 3 groups, or 6 groups, mixing there a little more. It might be nice. So, but do ask these good questions in that Flipgrid. I'm going to go in there more often as well. I apologize. I haven't been in.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Really quick shout out to group number 4 for funny creative name. It's Ed and the Girls, because Ed Campos is the only boy with all the girls in that group. I feel like the bad teacher who just didn't really look. I'm all, how did that happen? We didn't get all the right. And then he wrote a little cute comment saying he grew up with all sisters, so he feels right at home. So I love that. And then another shout out to group 3. Sorry, I'm totally giving a shout out to my teams because they're amazing. But Rita and her husband put like 5 different ideas for names on our doc. The Broken Link, the 404, like all these cute. Maybe she just wrote. My husband and I have been brainstorming. So if everybody hasn't had a chance to like come up with,
we haven't talked about it.
I think it's kind of cool that people are getting in there and doing that. Yeah. We also had a suggestion of possibly getting a Voxer group going. We just don't want to have way too many groups of conversations going. But in one of our groups, we are posting our Voxer names. If that is the tool that you like to talk about or talk within, I mean, why not start there too? I don't want to confuse people, but I just want to make sure people connect in the way that works the best way for them. So Heather, I don't know if she was going to start a group or not, but she did suggest it, and a few people were excited about that too.
Awesome. And I want to say, I'm really sensing the personal connections coming out of this these small groups. I love Micah and Katie are totally giving each other shout outs for having multiple kids under the age of 3 or 4 and all that good stuff. So really incredible connections being made, personal level, professional level, and that's really what this is about. So thank you for that. Thank you for being open. The more you put yourself out there, of course, the more you get back. I really believe in that. So I don't want to keep you guys any longer. I just want to plant one more thing to think about. We'll be sending our kind of midweek check-in emails to you guys just to see how things are going, but be thinking about whether or not you want to receive credit for taking this course. We partner with Adams State University, and EdTech team can really, basically, if you pay an additional fee, you can get a unit of credit for all this work that you're doing. So you're doing so much work, and it's incredible, and so many of you are doing it just to do it and to become better educators, and that's amazing. But if you are looking to receive extra credit, we will email you more information to find out. But just be thinking about if that's something that you'd like to get out of this as well. Okay.
Hey, last shout out. Thanks, Micah, for sharing that link to the awesome resources for the copyright free images. I'll post it in the Google Plus and on our, actually, I'll post it right on our scope and sequence. Sorry, there's so much to talk about. You guys are going to have to go back and watch this video again.
Thank you so much. Thanks for bearing with me. I created that. I got this inspiration for that HyperDoc last night, created it late at night. So sorry if the links weren't open, but I think it's going to be fun. I'm going to probably do that with some of the schools I work with. Fun way to get teachers back and talking about their summer, learning new web tools, engaging with each other, all the good stuff. So thank you. We will see you guys throughout the week on our different chats and see you live next week.